Thief's Market is a really interesting game. It's a game that I'm interested in from a mechanical perspective, and that was really how it caught my eye. It plays 3 to 5 players. It was designed by Dave Chalker. It's another TMG game. I really do like what TMG managed to fit in some small boxes. Let's just dive right in and have a look. So Thief's Market caught my eye when it was on Kickstarter, from a mathematician's perspective, not from a board gamer's. Most people are familiar with the I cut and you choose method for splitting a cake, but few are familiar with the version where you extend this to n parties, which is basically what Thief's Market does. If you're not familiar, the first person slices a piece of cake they think is fair. The next person and each subsequent person can either do exactly the same thing and take a slice that they think is fair from the main chunk, or if they think that someone else's slice is too big, they can take that slice. However, because they thought it was too big, they must slice a bit off and return it to the middle. Now obviously if you can do multiple slices, you can keep doing this, getting smaller and smaller bits going on and so on until you have fair things, and this is mathematically sound. And it reminds me of another interesting mathematical oddity, that 3 people are able to split a piece of land 3 ways, such that all of them end up with more than they think is a fair share. Isn't maths great? I'm going to save that one for another time, most likely for when I get bored of teaching calculus and decide to go off on a tangent. So Thief's Market builds on this idea, but unlike a cake, dice are not infinitely splittable. And of course it's impossible to split the dice fairly no matter what happens, because in 3 players there are 10 dice, 4 there are 11, 5 there are 13. But even if we could split them equally in number, you'd struggle to have a fair split. And you know, it is this discrete nature of dice which makes this so delicious to me. You've got to be really careful with what you do here. It's easy to be overcome by greed and try to grab an extra gold token or an extra point, but you know, you have to put something in the middle when you're stealing. So if someone takes those 3 things from you, like say I need a sapphire and a ruby, but I take a sapphire, ruby and a gold, well if someone steals that from me and chucks the gold back in the middle, I can't steal them both back from them, because I have to put something back in the middle. I'd end up with just one thing. And that's where you get a really neat, interesting decision. Just how greedy can you afford to be? And you know, for me, this mechanic alone would be enough. There are games that I am happy to play because of a novel mechanic. Mystic Vale with its card crafting system is one. Dice Forge with its dice building is another. And Thief's Market fits solidly in this category of game. But it has a variety of other positives for me too. Custom dice is one, and I fully admit that this is a bit silly, but it's just so satisfying to have a handful of custom dice and let them clink around in your hands. Ongoing abilities on cards that you purchase is a huge one for me. Pretty much any game in which you can purchase more powers or more abilities would be one that I'm interested in. You know, I'm just addicted to progression. I pretty much hate running, but I'll sit there on Strava, look at my stats, just because the progression keeps me going at it. It's also a small box, easy to take anywhere. You could argue there's quite a lot of iconography, but I find that mostly the iconography is quite clear and the little playwright tells you about it. Maybe you could also argue there could be runaway leader issues if that person's getting too many powers, but there's plenty of player interaction and the drafting really allows you to kind of stamp that out. The point scoring is, you know, reasonably interesting. I don't think there's too much exciting going on there, but it's fine. Basically, if you're a sucker for an interesting mechanic, you've got to give it a try. And, you know, I'd really suggest you just play it anyway. It's a really unique game that you've got to try once if you get the chance.